the Village School District regular board meeting for July 2022. It's July 21st, 2022, and it's 6 p.m. Mr. Ray, call the roll, please.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Need a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting.
So moved.
Discussion? No. Call the roll, Ms. Ruth.
Mrs. Nolan? Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you. Motion to approve the minutes for the regular board meeting from June 16th, 2022.
So moved. Can I be the first one, even though I wasn't here? Or should I abstain from those June?
When we do the roll call, abstain from the roll
Okay,
call.
but I can be the first.
You
Okay.
can motion.
Okay, sorry about that.
Technically, you could still vote.
Okay.
Hearing no further discussion, call the roll.
Mrs. Nolan? Mrs. Chestnut?
Abstain.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you. I'm going to go to Mr. John Spicer, Superintendent, for some safety remarks.
Thank you, President Miranda, members of the board, those watching this evening, and those in the audience. Thank you for the opportunity this evening to speak to you. I wanted to speak in general terms about school safety here in the district, but also want to speak a little bit about a lot of what we've heard in the media about House Bill 99. Just a quick summary. The bill was signed into law in June. It's effective September the 12th. It allows schools to identify individuals that may carry weapons in a school zone. It is up to each school district to decide what they'd like to do. If a board decides to allow staff to carry weapons, they must make that public. In addition, the school district must submit a list of those names to the state of Ohio. This list is not subject to public records requests. The locations, names, et cetera, of those, should it be passed here locally, would not be subject to those records requests. It requires an individual to take 24 hours of initial training, 8 of those in an annual recertification training through the state of Ohio. But I think most importantly, the state has not shared any of those training details with us or any district as of yet. It does allow school districts to add the minimum to this minimum if they so choose, and they must also, the individuals must also complete an annual criminal records check. We will have this summary on our website at some point for folks. But most importantly, the Board of Education has not made any decisions about how we as a district will, or if we will, allow staff to carry or to have access to weapons in our schools. My comments this evening are part of a thoughtful and engaging process that we want to be sure to include parents, our staff, and the community in this discussion. On August the 9th at 6 p.m. right here in these board offices, we will have a public safety forum that I will facilitate. We'll also launch a thought exchange prior to August the 9th for allow folks to share their thoughts and questions at that time. What I want our parents, staff, and community to know that's really, really important is that we have a very robust safety precautions in place at this time. School safety is not something that's new to Milford. We meet with all 4 chiefs, police and fire, Milford and Miami Township, on a regular basis. We met just a couple weeks ago, as a matter of fact. In doing so, we always talk about our safety plans that are required to be updated annually, but as I said, we meet so often that it's done as a minimum annually, so we do it quite often. We also work with our school resource officers as well on a daily basis. I'll talk about that shortly. I think it goes without saying that we have an incredible relationship with both Miami Township and the Milford Police Departments and the fire departments. This is something that we do not take for granted, especially those of us who have worked in other districts or talked to folks in other districts, they are not afforded that same relationship that we are with our first responders, and we're very grateful for that. Speaking about the school resource officers, at this time, we have 3 school resource officers from Miami Township. They've also applied for a grant to have a 4th school resource officer in our schools. Elementary schools as well will be covered. What's most important is our long-term goal is to have a school resource officer in every single one of our buildings. This would include a liaison that is currently with the Milford Police Department. We've approached and talked with the city of Milford and asked them to engage in that process as well. And I also forgot to mention we do have 1 DARE officer with Miami Township as well. We also go through ALICE training, that is active shooter training for our staff. We've gone through Stop the Bleed training, some of our staff have. We have a strong mental health support system here embedded in our schools. We have school counselors. We also have mental health interventionists, and we also have partners with mental health as well. We have currently a mental health coordinator, Will Cates, plus 9 other mental health interventionists, unheard of. I think we're on the cutting edge of that as well. So I want folks to know that. Previously we have allowed visitors to enter into our vestibules. Coming into the 22-23 school year, you will not be allowed to just enter into the vestibule. You will have to buzz in, you will have to identify yourself. We are going to harden our entrances and other areas as well. This evening, the board is going to be voting on film, for lack of a better term, film for our doors and some windows to make those glass shatterproof. So that's another safety measure. At this time, Chief Mills from Miami Township is here. I'd like him to maybe address the board, say a few words about school safety.
As soon as they told me they were going to talk about school safety and they wanted maybe me to answer any questions or to reiterate everything Mr. Spicer said about our relationship with the school district. And I've worked at other police departments, so I know that this is unheard of to have this great of a relationship to where he can call me at 10 o'clock at night if he needs to, if we have some safety issue. And he already spoke about it, and we won't go into it with detail, but we have lots of layers of security, not only our training, our recommendations for hardening the schools, a lot of our detectives, some things they do. Again, I can't go into talking too much about it because you never know who's watching. But we have a great relationship, and we appreciate that relationship, and I'm available at any time to answer any questions. And Chief Mills from Milford, he's out of town, and he also sent that same message. So
I appreciate it. Again, I don't think we can reiterate how important our relationship, working relationship is, and how often Jeff Johnson, our SROs, Chief, his staff, we're constantly looking at ways to make our buildings safer and as safe as we possibly can. So I appreciate that. Thank you for being here. Do any of the board members have questions for Chief Mills?
Not necessarily a question, but thank you for coming the other day, and I did not realize what a good, I mean, I know I've seen, a lot of mention of how you guys work together, but really how close and how long-standing that partnership is, and that Milford, I mean, partly because of our size, 35 square miles, it's a good area of coverage that you really can touch and get places quickly, across you and Milford, so I really appreciate the time that you and fire and the board have spent getting to and building those relationships, because that's, in the end, I want our students to have good relationships with the community, safety I don't want them to be scared of police. I think that will help us all come together when we know you can trust them, they can trust you, they're familiar with you and not scared of you guys. So I appreciate all the work you've done.
Great, thank you.
One quick question, Chief Mills. How would you characterize this school district's approach to safety without getting into details about other districts, but what you know about that? How would you characterize our approach to safety?
Out of 10, close to a 10. There's always room for improvement, and just like this year with not being able to come into the vestibules, that's just another level. So I would say we're about as close to 10 as you can get, especially working with some of our older buildings. Our SROs, our DARE officer, they're constantly looking for things to recommend. And Jeff Johnson and Mr. Spicer, they listen. So, I mean, you can't ask for much more than that. I have a vested interest. Not only am I the police chief, but I've had 3 kids go through Milford, all the way from elementary school. I have 1 left. The other 2 are in college now. But so I've had a vested interest, and not only in being the police chief, but being a father.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Just a few final comments. Earlier, I had mentioned that this goes into effect September 12th, 2022. That does not allow or mean that any staff can just carry and bring weapons in. They cannot. No one can bring a weapon on site in a building unless you approve it. And so we've not done any of that, and I think that's just very important to say. I wanted to make sure I reiterated that so that folks know that no one can bring a weapon in, even on September the 12th and thereafter. You have to approve it first.
And if we approve that, they still have another layer of vetting that they go through at the state as well.
There is. That's what we kind of outlined, that summary of the House bill. But I think that should the board decide to do something that would allow, then I think there would be a whole other process of allowing that to happen. And we would certainly work with our police departments and others in professional and to figure what that might look like if you should decide to do that. So I just wanted to follow up and just remind folks, August the 9th, 6 p.m., there'll be a safety forum here, a discussion, a listening session to hear what everyone has to say. We'll cover similar information that we've covered this evening, but again, it'll be mostly listening to folks. Hopefully by then the state will release a little bit more details about what's required in their training. And then the board at that point can take some input and then in the future make a decision, if any, that might be different than what we're doing today. In the meantime, I hope to see everyone on the 9th. Any questions for me?
The vestibule, I appreciated that last year, one of the times when I went to my school, there was some kind of threat floating around, and the schools did that right away. So I think that the schools have done a good job of being flexible throughout the year. Like, what do we need? What do we need to address right now? Because that happened for a part. We let it up.
Yeah.
I totally agree that it makes sense to do it again. But
Yeah, it's going to be uncomfortable for some parents or folks that want to try to come into the building and they have to kind of buzz in, identify themselves. You might start to see some ring doorbells, if you will, in a few of our buildings. We've used one at the high school in the past, and we'll probably put another one there. And we're gonna do our best to harden our entrances. And you know, one of the #1 things we can do as well is make sure our classroom doors are closed and locked. I think that's something that we have done in the past. The last couple of years with COVID, we've been a little bit more relaxed on that, but I think we are going back to the door. Your door has to be closed and locked at all times when you're in there with students. So.
Well, there's been a pretty strong community voice about this topic, as there should be. I just want to tell everyone how much I appreciate that voice. And I think the public should know how very serious we take this. This isn't a haphazard decision. This school district, as Chief Mills had mentioned, is one of the best at mitigating some of that risk for child safety today. HB 99 doesn't change any of that, and this board, this administration, and leaning heavily on local law enforcement, again, not only taking this serious, but really trying to be as thoughtful as we can about the safety for our children. So I guess I just want to make sure that everyone clearly understands that this is not we're not taking any of this lightly. So
That's it for me.
Okay. Thank you. This brings us to our first public commentary.
I have none at this time.
We have no one. Okay, very good. Moving right along. We go to Board of Education business. Mr. Superintendent Spicer.
President Miranda, members of the board, as you can see, there is a motion here to demolish the Robbins building and the weight room. So we're asking for your approval to do so as a part of the construction of the new middle school. And we did have a board work session on Monday that we did live stream, and it's still recorded for those who would continue to like to watch that. The footprint of the new middle school does encroach on the Robbins building and the weight room, and therefore it will be displaced. And so we're just looking for your approval to go ahead and demolish those buildings in the future. Not now, not next year, but maybe 1.5 to 2 years from now is when we would do that. If that is the case, we would also work with our athletic department, Aaron Zupka, to make sure that we take care of those displaced athletes, students, weight room, and certainly the wrestling piece of that as well.
Okay. So we now need a motion to approve the demolition of the Robbins building and the weight room, formerly known as the bus garage, as part of the construction process for the new middle school that's coming down the pike at us.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion?
I'm really excited for the middle school, and I think if we look at all of our buildings and what the master plan looked like many years ago, I'm not sure that these were ever even, I don't know that they were mentioned. I certainly don't think they were built with the intent to live for forever, and they've done a good job for what they need to do, but they really are physically in the area we need, and the facilities are old, and our athletes, and
They have met their life cycle.
they've done their job well. And I really don't know that they are ever part of a big, you can't look at those buildings and think somebody did that, did this, so.
Yep,
I don't
the
think it'll be a
original
good
bus
upgrade.
garage came with what was the high school on the hill, which is now the junior high, which was back in about 1960, if I remember correctly. And the Robbins building, which has served its purpose very, very well, was built in the 80s by a donation from a former graduate from Milford, so.
Yeah, I think it's probably important to know that because of this footprint encroaching on those two buildings, and if anyone here has children that wrestled or participate in the weight program, you've been inside that building, and it's pretty bad. Not only is it old, I would argue that it's at times unsafe, and it's outlived its life. The unfortunate part about this, just to be clear, is that the bond issue to replace the junior high did not cover the replacement of these two buildings. So the board's going to be challenged with, eventually, as Mr. Spicer pointed out, as those finally go away, they will need to be replaced. And we're going to have decisions to make to find other space, build other space, do something to make sure that our student athletes have a place that currently exists in those two buildings. So the bond did not cover that. The bond covered the junior high. And I just want to make that clear. If we rewind the clock a few years ago, the original larger bond that did not pass did include replacing both those buildings, and that was skinnied up, removed. But we're back at this issue again that we candidly can't ignore. With the new junior high, this is something we're going to have to address. And I'd be remiss, because if you look at the work the work session. I talked openly about that, and I just want to make sure for those that didn't watch that, just knew the high level decisions that are facing us here in the relatively short term about those two buildings.
And this is truly not new news. We were working on plans to replace those buildings at least a year and a half ago, and it just needs to get a little nudge. When we pass a bond issue to build that's going to build over top of them, then you've got to move forward. That's where we're at.
So we talked about this on Monday at the work session, and I agree, without that, they need to be replaced. They serve their time. But as Jerry mentioned, I don't think the community realized that voting yes on the junior high is then going to add about a $12 million added cost that wasn't included in the bonds. We really need to be creative in how to fund that. So I have a question for you, Brian. On Monday, we talked about that we have about, and I know this is questions that will come after the fact. I mean, we're voting right now just to demolish this building, but we have about $40 million in the current general fund. And the plan that we saw on Monday was about, with the auditorium project and all of this outside, it's about $14.5 million, which is 36% of our general fund. So ultimately, since the general fund is used to cover the deficit of what we spend each year, we'll run out of that general fund sooner, which will facilitate an operating levy sooner than it otherwise may have been. So the community's going to pay for it one way or the other, whatever we can't, run, raise in a capital campaign or some other sponsorship. So my grandpa used to always have a phrase that he said, "Don't bet on the come," meaning, you don't have something right now, but you're betting that it's going to happen. So my question is, what happens if we use this general fund money to replace this? We then have to do an operating levy. What if that doesn't pass?
You, obviously, if you front this up front with the cash that you currently have and you fail the operating, obviously you're going to have to make cuts in other areas outside of it. Even if you would to finance any part of this, you're still going to be on the hook to make that loan payment regardless of if you pass the levy or not. So any other type of expenditure or any other type of reductions or cuts that you would have to make would have to come from other areas within the budget.
So when I met with you when we met in February or early March, just to, you explained to me and Jerry how the financing part, and actually that meeting, that a lot of districts use the tactic of threatening, we're going to take away busing if we don't pass the operating levy. And that's what I don't want to see. I don't want to put our community over the barrel, threatening busing. So I just want to put that all out on the table right now. We really need to raise capital funds so we don't have to use so much of the general fund.
And go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I don't know if threatening's the right word. Busing and some of those other ones are, when you're looking at making any type of cuts to any type of expenses, the last place you want to touch is the classroom. You want to make sure that you still have the teachers, you can still, you're still paying for the textbooks, you're still paying for curriculum. So you want to hit those other areas outside of it. Transportation just happens to be the one. And when we talk about the transportation, the state has certain minimums that they require that we have to transport. One of the items that we currently provide that's outside of the state minimums is the transportation to the high school. So that's typically one of the first items that a lot of school districts look at is the high school busing, because it's not going to directly impact the classroom and what's being taught in the classroom. So, when you're putting that list together of all the possible cuts, it's just that this is what we're going to need to do so that we can avoid having to touch the classroom.
I just want to state the ripple effect of
Yes, absolutely.
this decision to demolish this building.
Yeah.
I'd like to say too, for anybody who is interested in this discussion, I think it's really important to watch the work session if you were not able to attend. There was a lot of discussion about a lot of different issues, and right now we're kind of giving you the bullet points. One of the things that we did talk about is that we need to move forward with this middle school footprint. Some of the things that were affecting this is if we kept the footprint as it was suggested right now, we could keep our groundwater storage above ground, which was a savings of hundreds of thousands of dollars to the district. And if we did want to perhaps save the two buildings that are sort of out of commission at this point, if we wanted to save those buildings and move the footprint of the middle school, we would have to go to underground groundwater storage, which would be much more expensive to the district. So it's a lot of different decisions and things that were talked about. And if you do listen to the work session, I think you'll get a more thorough understanding of all the things that went into this discussion and our vote tonight.
We discussed at the last work session different options, and one of the scenarios was to take the money out of the general fund. That's certainly not the preferred method. That's not what Mr. Rabe and I have been talking about for a year and a half. We've been talking about trying to finance it through a variety of different means, some private donations, some public money as well. When you talk about replacing buildings that have lived their useful life, and you're talking about the public having to pay for it, public's already paid for it. We just haven't built it.
I understand, I'm in favor of constructing the buildings. I just want everyone to understand when we get to, by the time we get to this operating levy, it's gonna be when all of this stuff is bright and shiny new, and then the community's gonna be looking at all of this nice stuff, a new junior high, and we're gonna have a new exterior stadium area, and then we're gonna ask for money, and it's gonna hit for that time. So I just want to state now, 2 years prior, that we have the ripple effect, what, you know, the chain of events that's going to.
And we talked about that, we talked about the bond, or excuse me, the levy back when we were running the bond in 2019, that it was coming, and be prepared for it. If it's a surprise to the community's had their head in the sand. We've been talking about that. We talked about that when we actually ran the bond last year.
Well, definitely. For the past 2 years, my message has been pass or fail a bond to build a new middle school. We're going to be back in a couple of years, and that's the case. I mean, we're going to be back. The last time we passed a levy in this district was May of 2013, which is unheard of, to make a levy last as long as we've been able to make it last. So the community knows. I mean, there's no way they don't know. That's been the messaging. I will piggyback a little bit with you, Mrs. Nolan. We get to a point where, you know, we're in trouble with dollars and cents. We're not cutting art, music, and PE. I'm not doing that. That's not what we offer here. We offer all those programs. Those are one of the first things that are cut. So I won't ask you to cut those things. You'll have to do that. We're going to offer the best Milford education that we offer right now to our community, and you know, we'll see. I mean, the community has to make that decision.
The other thing I was telling you too, after our meeting on Monday, but before today, was the possibility of incorporating like an outdoor classroom somehow in some of that outside space. Thank you. That's okay. Incorporating an outdoor classroom, and then you can reconfigure the furniture, whatever, for socializing, for games and events, because I think then we can use some of the ESSER funds for outdoor classroom funding.
I like your thinking.
I think the problem is the ESSER funds, the deadline's going to be gone by the time we ever get to this point.
I think it's been extended. What I read was an article in May that you could apply through the end of September, and then those projects need to be completed by 2026.
Okay. I'll take a look.
I also, most districts go back more frequently than once every 10 years.
It's
for-
typically every 3
for-
years.
So the fact that we've already been able to extend it this far, I think says a lot about how fiscally responsible.
Yes, I mean, I have been having a conversation here internally in that, you know, if you own a business and inflation hits, you just raise the price of your product. Or if you have to pay your employees more, you just raise the price of your product. We don't have a product to raise the price. So I understand what it means to be fiscally responsible. You know, our curriculum instruction department is what we're all about, is teaching and learning. And they've made cuts to their budget, and then they've only spent about 93% of their budget this year, because we're trying to be so fiscally conservative with our dollars, knowing that the life of this 2013 levy is coming to an end. So it's really important for the community to know and understand that everywhere we can save, we are trying to save and cut, but we don't want it to impact what's happening inside the classroom.
And if we want to change funding, we can go to Columbus and talk to our friends in Columbus about how schools are funded.
I encourage you to speak to your state reps and legislators, absolutely.
Okay, is there any more discussion on this topic? Mr. Rabe, call the roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you. Now going to move on to the treasurer's report. Mr. Rabe.
Thank you, Mr. Miranda. Asking for a motion for approval of the board reports for the month ending June 30th, 2022.
Okay, I need a motion to approve the board reports as we have received them.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion?
A couple items I did want to point out. Obviously, June 30th was the close of our fiscal year. Our general fund, we closed out we closed them out at 94% of what we anticipated budget-wise. I did want to give shout out to Extended Day. Extended Day was impacted greatly over COVID, to the point where we actually advanced them $150,000 2 years ago. They were able to pay that back this year, and they did end up with about $120,000 cash balance at the end of the fiscal year. So they've done an excellent job of recovering from the losses they felt during the COVID impact. Also on that, if you'll notice on your reports, a lot of the federal programs typically month to month are in the negative because they are in reimbursement programs. This is the 1 month you'll actually see them in the positive, just because the state lets us ask for additional funding. Typically, when we ask for funding, you can ask for what you've spent plus anything above and beyond that, you have to spend within 5 days. At the end of the fiscal year, they let us extend that out for 30 days. So that's why the one time of the year, you'll actually see a positive cash balance in those. Next month, we'll probably be back in the negative once again. When we did the 5-year forecast back in May, we anticipated we were going to be about $100,000 in deficit spending. We did end up with $1.2 million in deficit spending. However, with one caveat, the TIF money that we received from Miami Township, we have typically in the past always received that in June. This year, there was some issues with Miami Township with some staffing. We didn't receive that payment until July. So we did receive it. It just came in about a week late of getting it in the fiscal year. Of that payment, it is divided amongst the general fund, the bond retirement fund, and the PI, or the classroom facilities fund. But what would have went in the general fund was about $1.353 million. So that would have turned that, what we actually ended up with the negative $1.2 million would actually turned it into about $132,000 positive on the year, simply because of the timing issue with that. So I did kind of want to point that out.
And the previous year, we were in the red, correct?
We,
About $1 million?
In the black.
No.
believe last year we were about $2,000 in the black. We were close.
Wasn't that 2 years ago?
I might be getting my years
Okay.
mixed up.
What's your point?
My point is we're maintaining.
Yes, yes,
Okay, I wasn't sure.
you got it. So at the end of June, we did end up with just shy of $41 million in the bank in the general fund. On the investment side, we did have almost $23,000 investment in interest. We finished the year with a little over $283,000. On the bond investments, $9,600 on the month, $26,000 on the year. That money will go back into the building project. We do have a large investment that's maturing at the end of here of July, which should generate about a little over $60,000 in interest. We have contacted OFCC, SHP, as well as Conger to try to get a draw schedule so that we can lay out the bond investment schedule with that. So we're still waiting on that, but we hope to have that here soon. We'll be able to lay out the investments more evenly within the investment account.
Have they signaled when they're going to get that back to us?
SHP kind of had it. We were just waiting on Conger to finish their end of it.
So are you expecting it in a week or 2 weeks? What do you think?
I would say about 2 weeks.
Okay.
I'm hopeful. Hopeful. We probably need to nudge them and remind them.
Jeff?
But yeah, so our last core meeting, which was about 2 weeks ago, that's when we brought it up. So
Good.
yeah,
Well, having those draw schedules are really going to help us when we start to look at some of our investments as well, and
Right.
as they mature, all the good things that come with that draw schedule. So,
Yes.
when the bills are due and figuring out which ones to pay in out of what bucket, so. yeah.
absolutely. We did, you will start noticing, and I'll break it out for you as well. We did get approval for our first draw schedule from OFCC. We haven't gotten the money yet, but it went through the approval process. So we'll start seeing some money flow from them. I believe the first draw was about $100,000 though, so it's not significant right now, considering there's not a whole lot of expenses or work going on. But just to let you know, that money is going to start flowing here on a monthly basis.
Good.
And that's basically just a pass-through, right?
Correct.
We get it right
We
before you
get
need
it,
to
then we send,
pass
then
it
we
out.
cut a
Yeah,
check.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't reinvest, unfortunately. Any other discussion? Call the roll, Mr. Red.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Now go to superintendent's business. Superintendent John Spicer.
Thank you, President Miranda, members of the board, asking for your approval, second reading of the following policies, 1 through 4.
Okay, I need a motion to approve the policies that are in your agenda today. This, after the second reading, we then go to the vote. So,
So moved.
Second?
discussion? Call the roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
I was going to ask you for some highlights.
Stop. Middle school update. We have our next community engagement on August the 4th at 6 p.m. here. SHP, our architects, and Conger Construction will be here. Certainly would love for all of our community to come. As it'll just be the most recent update that they have on where we are with the design and where things are going. So we look forward to that. We had a great organizational meeting today with Conger Construction and SHP and OFCC. So I think we're moving right along, and the communication between all entities is, I think, above average. So very good. So it's been great stuff so far. Item number 3, the Citizens Advisory Commission. Just a reminder that our first meeting for that group will be August 31st. That'll be here in this room. Looking forward to meeting with those folks. We'll be sending out a thought exchange to that group to get some feedback, early feedback about some of the items that they believe we need to discuss. And also, the bylaws are available for folks to see if they are so inclined. And that is it for superintendent's business.
Okay, thank you. Moving ahead to section F of the agenda, human resource business, Superintendent John Spicer.
Thank you, sir. Under Human Resources, I'm asking for your approval of the following MOU from the Supplemental Review Committee. Those are supplementals that need to be approved by the board.
I need a motion to approve the MOU from the MEA that came from the Supplemental Review Committee.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Call a roll?
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
Under item 2, administrative personnel approvals, asking for your approval of items A and B. Item A is the approval of Kim Hayden returning to Milford to be our preschool special education coordinator.
Okay, I need a motion to approve the administrative personnel approval for items A and B as listed in your agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
I just understand that this is a great win for our district, and I wanted to point that out.
It is.
Welcome back.
Welcome home. Okay, anything else? Call a roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
Jenny and Kim, do you guys want to say anything? Kim does not, doesn't want the microphone.
Yes.
We're excited to have Kim back. She's excited to be back, and we go way back into the 90s. We taught together at the junior high for a while, so we're really excited to have her back and to be a part of our team, and it's a great hire, so thank you for the approval. Welcome back. Under item 3, certified personnel approvals, asking for your approval of items A through J.
Okay, before we do this, I just wanna, why don't you mention it, how much time we spend on this? Truly, this is flying by in front of the cameras here. This is not fly-by in committee. These committee meetings take a long time in order to get this stuff through. So bear in mind that when we're rifling through this, we've spent the time, we've done our due diligence before we ever get there. So I need a motion to approve certified personnel, items A through J as written in your agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I wanted to not just echo what you had to say, Dave, but you've probably heard us speak about some of the exit interviews that we've been doing over the past, and Ms. Barkley's been conducting these, and we had a chance to just discuss a little bit of themes, and I just want to mention that that's just a great best practice for any organization, and thank you for that. We'll continue to listen to folks as they move on to other things, and I think it's important for us to learn from that. So thanks for the effort. I'll expect it to continue, and I know it will. So there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes to be a better district, and that's one of them. So.
And to partner with that, this upcoming year, there'll be stay interviews as well.
That's
So I
correct.
think it's
Yeah.
important to
Yeah.
not just hear from people who have Journey has taken them elsewhere, but for people who have stayed, we want to
Yeah.
hear.
Yes.
It's just a proven best practice of engagement, to learn from the exits and learn from the stays and just collect all of that and be better tomorrow than we were today. So, yeah. Call the roll.
So, yeah, I had to think for a second where we were. Go ahead and call the roll, Mr. Rabe.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
If we could stay on that for just a second, we're losing some great people in item A, and but one person that I want to point out is Shane Elkin. Shane Elkin has been a teacher in this district for a very, very, very long time, and it is a great loss for this district. Shane has moved on to Goshen. He'll be teaching mathematics at Goshen High School, and he's also the head football coach at Goshen. Reached out to him today, spoke to him a little bit about, via text, just if he needed anything as time has passed since the tornado in Goshen. But Shane's a great person, great teacher, and just a better human. So, and we're all better for knowing him, and he'll be missed. So I just wanted to point that out. Under item 4, exempt personnel approvals, asking for your approval of items A through E.
Need a motion to approve exempt personnel for item A through E, as written.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Call the roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
I'd also like to point out in item 4B, I'd mentioned it earlier, our mental health interventionist, we now have 9 mental health interventionists in this district that we hire. I can't tell you how important that is for our school community and the great work that they do.
And those positions were started before COVID, and I think
Yes.
during COVID, we realized their importance, so I'm glad
Absolutely.
to see that the state is
Absolutely.
partially funding that with mental wellness.
There is
dollars.
specific dollars earmarked for that wellness that we have to spend specifically on those items, and we're grateful for that. But yes,
Absolutely.
correct. Under item 5, classified personnel approvals, asking for your approval under items A through K.
We need a motion to approve classified personnel items A through K as listed.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Call the roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
Under item 6, supplemental personnel approvals, asking your approval of items A through F.
Need a motion for supplemental personnel items A through F as written.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
There's a lot of names on there.
Yeah.
Yes,
a lot
there's
of-
always a lot for the supplemental positions.
Can we go through D one by one? That is a joke that's not very funny. We're not going to do that.
No.
We've already done it.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Went through all of them.
Call the roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
But before we wrap up HR, I just wanted to also note that we are doing very well on hires. We have just a couple positions left to fill. Jenny and the rest of the team and our principals and all the interviewing that they've done, it's been a lot of work. They've done hundreds of interviews, so very grateful for them and the work that they've done.
I learned this past week of a super successful hiring fair that we had, and that's just one of the many parts of the effort. And anyone out there that's watching, if you have great people that are interested in working with our district, please send them our way. That's a public service announcement for more talent.
Thank you. Yeah, we
You
did
didn't
have a great
notice?
job fair. It was great. It was a classified job fair. It was here on a Saturday.
Yeah,
We had a great turnout, and we're grateful for that as well.
Yeah.
And we are a destination district.
Yes, sir.
We're a place that people wants to come, that what people want to come to, so. Okay, moving on to Section J, Curriculum Instruction, Superintendent John Spicer.
Thank you, President Miranda, members of the board. Asking for your approval, number 1, foreign exchange student. We are going to, under number 1, rescind one who did not meet their needs from the host agency. And then we are asking for your approval, number 2, of Amanda Fernandez Moreno to attend Milford High School as a foreign exchange student, and she is from Spain.
Okay, I need a motion to approve foreign exchange students as listed in item G, section 1.
Second?
Discussion? This leaves us back at 4, correct?
Paul, we're still at 4, correct?
5.
5. We're at 5.
We're at
Can I get
5?
6? Yeah, we're at 5.
We're
Sorry.
at 5? Okay. Any other discussion? Call the roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
Under item 2, asking your approval of curriculum pay, number 1.
Okay, I need a motion to approve curriculum pay as outlined in item 2.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? Call roll.
Mrs.
Sorry.
Mrs. You're fine. Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
Under item 3, asking for your approval for reimbursement. Item A, to reimburse teacher Kendra Dietrich for attendance at the AP training sessions this summer. It was a condition of her employment. She will be teaching advanced placement courses for us.
Okay, need a motion to approve this reimbursement.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion?
This is very common.
Yeah.
Just to be clear to everyone, this is what we do for people that we train, so we pay for
Yep.
it. Call.
Call roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you. Moving on to agenda item H, Superintendent Spicer.
Thank you, President Miranda. Members of the board, under number 1, I am asking for your approval of the Conger contract as submitted.
Need a motion to approve the Conger contract as written.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
A quick comment for you, Jeff. We've seen 0 surprises, would you say, from the very beginning till now that the contract is submitted, correct? The stroll. I mean, I love that stroll.
I mean, we're early on, but surprises, no. You're approving the contract tonight, but Conger's been working with us for 2 months already.
Right.
Attending meetings, helping with our pre-con and giving some input on the floor plan that we've been working on. They were with us today for 7 hours in our organizational meeting. We had a lot of really good comments. It's the first time I've worked with Conger, but they come with a great reputation. I will say what the board is approving tonight is their pre-construction fees. Once we get to the end of DDs and into CDs, we'll start working on GMP amendments, which is guaranteed maximum price, that's when OFCC and the board actually commits to the hard cost construction costs. So what we're approving right now is anybody who looks at the contract is submitted will see a GMP amendment that has insert number here, insert number here. That will come probably in the first one, maybe in February, March. So that's what we're working on right now, and that's the commitment the board's making, is to go through and pay them for their costs for the pre-construction services.
It's just great, after a strong vetting process that the OFCC was very involved with, to land with Conger and realize after a couple months that it really was a great partner for us. And I appreciate the update for the public, because you spend far more time with them than anyone, and it's helpful to learn, how it's going.
Well, and I'd also like to point out, when we went through the selection process, with the architectural selection, it's a qualifications-based selection. Basically, all the architects are going to say the same percentage. Your fees are basically the same. So your selection is basically is all based on who you think can do the best job. When you go through the CM selection process, it is a combination of costs and qualifications. In our case, we put, you got a little bit of flexibility, but basically 60% of the selection was based on qualifications, 40% was based on cost. And I will tell you, of the 3 shortlisted CMs, Conger's pre-construction costs were the cheapest of the 3. In addition to being, they were the best, they were the cheapest, but they were also the best as far as qualifications. It wasn't like, we're getting not a good contractor because they're cheaper. But they rose to the top in both areas.
Good. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Call roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you.
Under item 2, asking for your approval of the solar tent contract, which is the safety film that I mentioned earlier today.
Okay, I need a motion to approve the solar tent contract that we reviewed at the, at Monday's meeting at our work session, and I need a motion to approve it.
So moved. Second.
Discussion.
I just wanted to point out that this film that's going to be applied to windows and doors is another example of us hardening our entrances. And Jeff, please correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. What it does is it buys us time. So if somebody was trying to get into the building and they were trying to shoot out the window and like climb through, they would not be able to do that. This prevents them from doing that. It's just one more layer of preventative protection.
Yeah, and,
That is correct. Time and distance.
And I know Mr. Johnson has been working on this for a while, because we were talking about hardening entrances back way before Uvalde, back in April, I believe, when we first started having conversations on how we would do this.
Correct.
And this was brought forward, so
Just,
we
this is
just
just,
keep looking and finding ways to,
it's another investment in trying to, in safety, and it was, again, in motion before Uvalde. And, you know, Chief Mills mentioned it before, that we're almost to 10, which there's always room to improve, but that's just another example, and you'll see really quickly how this board feels about this investment, so.
any other discussion? Call the roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yes.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you. This brings us to item I. And item I starts with public participation. Do we have anyone?
I have none.
Okay, very good. We're at the bottom here. The next regular board meeting is August 18th, 2022. That's a Wednesday night. It is in this room. It is at 6 o'clock.
A Wednesday?
Excuse me, Thursday. Wednesday's golf night, sorry. Thursday.
We'll meet you on the golf course.
Thursday, August the 18th at 6 p.m. in this room. I need
So moved.
I need a motion.
No? No, you don't.
No, I don't?
We
I don't
still
know.
get to meet.
I don't know why.
It's information.
I do need a motion, do I not?
No.
No, that's just information, I'm sorry. Okay, we'll go on to discussion. Losing my place here.
Yeah, Mr. Spicer?
I do. I have 2 things I'd like to mention. First and foremost, you know, earlier we talked about House Bill 99 and some of that, and I want to just say that our teachers, you know, their role is to instruct our students to create a fun learning environment where students, you know, want to be, where they'll feel safe. I don't want to be preemptive, but I don't think that we want teachers to have guns on their hips. So I want our staff to know that. I want our community to know that. But ultimately, that's a board decision. But I think I can safely say that I don't think that's what we want. But we'll continue to do everything we can to work with our police departments, our fire departments, first responders, to make our schools as safe as possible, and we'll continue to harden those entrances and other areas as we can. So I wanted to say that. And then also, just wanted to report out that I have completed my 90 days with Elizabeth from Peak Productivity, which was great. I think the best news out of all of that, not only was it a great learning opportunity, but on my own accord, I'm going to extend that. The opportunity to meet with her, as Mr. Combs once said, who wouldn't want something like that? Who wouldn't want someone to make them better all the time? And so Elizabeth has made me better at what I do. We'll continue to do that. I'm also going to afford that opportunity with my central office team as well. So she'll be working with them, having a minimal hour session with each of them. And also, Linda Davey is also going to contract with her to work with our principals as well. So there's going to be an opportunity for them to work with her as well. So it's been a great learning opportunity for all of us. So just wanted to share that little piece. That's it for me, Mr. Miranda, President Miranda. Sorry.
As follow-up to the work with Elizabeth with Peak, what I, as the board liaison, what I've really appreciated is how John was so willing to jump in and hear new things and just listen to a new perspective, and that he very quickly started thinking, how can I share this with everybody else? Because I think good leaders aren't made up of a pyramid with one person at the top directing the world. You know, I think they're made by lifting each other up and by giving opportunities to the leaders that are among you, and we're a better team like that. So I'm excited that we didn't know where Elizabeth was gonna go. You know, it wasn't gonna be a one-time thing, it was great, and she was gonna move on, but I'm really excited that there's been a partnership and sharing it out to everybody else.
And John, you and I talked a lot about this, moving into this, and I have to tell you, the little bit that I've heard about your willingness to lean in and listen and understand that there's opportunities for all of us and to try to act on them. I'll just tell you that, you know, we hired this third-party coach to just help our superintendent be the best superintendent he can be. And early returns are that you are more than leaning in, and you know, there's a lot to be said about that. So tip of the cap. Some of us know we need to get better and we're unwilling to. I think you were willing to do whatever it takes to be better. Yeah, it's good stuff. I think a great 90 days, and it looks like we're going to move forward with some more with the staff, which is nothing but great news from my perspective. So, yeah.
PO is done and document is signed.
Yeah. I believe that.
Yeah, the one thing I want to say on this is I could certainly say the same thing that's been said coming down the line here. Some people don't get praise for doing things. Emily, you found her. Congratulations, it was an excellent choice. You brought her to us, we looked it over, we thought it was a good idea. Obviously it was, so thank you for taking that on and being the liaison for that. That's an excellent job, thank you. Any other discussion?
If only there was some good news.
If only
You
there
got
was
any
some
good news for us, Dave?
Yes,
Only
yes,
we
yes.
could tighten that up.
Okay, well, let's go to, let's try to do the good
Gallery
news
doesn't want
report.
the news.
Okay, I
The
think,
peanut gallery doesn't want good news.
I think not only do we have good news, we have great news. And the great news is that the district ended the fiscal year with an operating income in excess of expenditures by $132,366. That's an excellent job, and that's not done by one person. Mr. Rabe is an excellent scorekeeper, but we've got everybody out here that's on the team is getting on the same end of the rope, and they're all yanking, and we're moving this district forward, and we're not overspending. We're being very smart in what we do, and we've made it through another year. Now we got to look at the next year and see what we can do there. Now on with the good news. Tracy Huggins was named the Crayola Ambassador to the Crayola Ambassador Leadership Program. If someone could tell me what that was, that would be helpful.
But it made the good news. So
It made the good
I
news, and I
will
knew it was
send
good
you
news.
everything you need to know about that. And Tracy is just like all of our others. She even herself said this. You know, she is amongst the great teachers in this district. But yeah, Tracy's a wonderful person and great teacher. But yes, another leadership opportunity for her, and I'll forward all that to you.
And she's on the community team too. They're not.
She is on
Yeah,
the
so
Citizens
that's-
Advisory
yes.
Commission. Yes, and yes.
She's a busy young lady, and she's had a really outstanding year with the other awards that she's received as well. Now a little bit of facilities stuff. We've talked about. We talked about Charity Lucas for the last 4 or 5 months. If you go out and it's still daylight out, we're going to get out early here tonight. You can take a look at Charity Lucas Stadium turf over there as you go by. It is in its final stages of installation. We expect that it's going to be done by the end of the week next week, according to Mr. Johnson. Looks great, and it's going to be a huge asset to this district. Also, if you drive across Eagles Way, you'll see new light poles at Eagle Stadium. That's another great opportunity to get that project done. I think we approved that project, if I remember correctly, it was in April. And they put those up here in the last week, correct? I don't think they were up on the weekend when I came across. It'll be done by the end of next week, and come to a football game and wait for us to score so you can see those lights go to work. Third thing, with regard to facilities, we also did some major, I don't know if I wouldn't call it decorating. We redid the interior of the swimming pool. It's been repainted. It's been repainted with new logos, and it looks really sharp. There was a post out on Facebook the other day, and the pool has been repainted. It's already refilled, and it's back in service for our students and our community. And one last thing, not exactly good news, but nothing bad either. Just welcome and good luck to all our new teachers that we have that are going to begin their Milford educational career here during the month of October. Some of them are starting the first day of the month, like the principals, and some of them will start a little bit later in the month.
August.
Excuse me, what did I say? October. Well, they'll be here in October, too. In August, yes. Hopefully, they're still here in October.
There'll be some resignations if they don't.
Dates to remember, the community engagement meeting is August the 4th. Another date that's kind of 3 dates rolled together. It's August 5th through the 7th. The state of Ohio will have a sales tax holiday. It covers clothing and school supplies, school instructional material, and there are some stipulations on how much you can do with sales tax not there. You can check the Ohio website, and that will give you all the information you need to know on that. As Mr. Spicer said, we have at 6 o'clock here on the 9th of August, we have the Community Safety Foreman. On the 12th of August, we have the Charity Lucas Soccer Stadium dedication. We have the Milford Exempted Village School District is having their staff convocation on August the 15th, and now we're getting all the hair standing on the neck of the teachers standing up because 2 days after that is the first day of school, August the 17th. And lastly, we mentioned this last month. We're going to do it again here this month. The Milford High School Marching Band will be holding a Milford Marching Showcase on August the 27th at Eagle Stadium under the new lights. That's all I have.
I did send each of you the Crayola. It's on our page, so it's on our page. The creativity ambassadors will be immersed in leadership exercises using creativity as a reflective practice and a catalyst for change. They will lead and inspire colleagues to leverage creativity and foundational practice in teaching and learning. So there's other items there as well, plus the full release from Crayola. So I just sent that to you via email.
So it was deserved to be on the good news.
Heck, that's great news.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It made the first half.
Just wanted to make sure it was.
Okay, it comes to the end of the meeting now. I need a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
I'm seeing no discussion. Call the roll.
Mrs. Nolan?
Yep.
Mrs. Chestnut?
Yes.
Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Mrs. Mason?
Yes.
Mr. Miranda?
Yes, thank you. Good night, everyone.